Okay, I wanted to go over lesson 18 with you guys, okay? So the first one, they had given you an example, and they showed you how to make the number line, okay? They broke it up into fourths, and then they plotted the number line, and it shows that 1/4 is less than 3/4, okay? So that one was already done for you. Then we had number 2, which was similar because they had the same denominator, right? I'm looking at these two fractions and I see, okay, they both are divided into sixths. So I don't really have to worry about two separate number lines, right? I made one number line and I broke it up into sixths, and here's 2 sixths and 3 sixths. So this shows that 2 sixths is less than 3 sixths, okay? Okay, number 3, they have different denominators, okay? So the first thing I did was I divided them in half, okay? So it was, both of these fractions are under 1, right? They're normal fractions, so my number line is from 0 to 1. And the first thing I did was break it in half. There's my half. Then from there I broke it into fourths and then labeled them. And so here's my half, here's my fourth. So 1/2 is greater than 1/4, okay? All right, so over here, I look and I say, okay, well, they're both normal fractions, okay, good. They do have different denominators. So I could use two different number lines, but because a 3 can become a 6, I could just use one number line, and that's what I did here. Okay, so I broke up, I have my number line 0 to 1, okay? And the first thing I did was I broke it up into thirds. So my green, 1/3, 2/3, 3/3. Okay, then I split up my thirds. See, right here. And then I labeled them 1/6, 2/6, 3/6, 4/6, 5/6, and 6/6. All right, and here I'm looking for 2/3. So there it is. And 2/6. And then 2/6 over here. Okay, so as we can see, 2/3 is further along the number line, it's closer to 1, so 2/3 is greater than 2/6, okay? All right, number 5. I did the same type of thing. I made one number line. You could have done two separate ones, but I just wanted to show you. Okay, so the first thing I look at is, improper fraction, improper fraction. So my number lines have to go over 1. So my base was 0, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, I made it up to 3. Now, I could have looked at them and said, okay, I know that none of those are a whole number, 2, but I assumed that we didn't think about that, okay? So improper fraction, improper fraction. So they're both greater than 1, all right? So then the first thing I did was I broke it up into fourths. Okay, so I took my green pen and did fourths. So I did my half, and I did that, okay, all the way across, like that, okay? And then I labeled it. So I have 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4, 5/4, 6/4, 7/4. And then for my halves, I split my halves. From my fourths, I split my fourths in half, and I got my eighths. Okay, so 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8, 6/8, 7/8, 8/8, right? Check. Yep, that's a 1. 9/8, 10/8, 11/8. So I have them both on the number line, and it shows that 7/4 is greater. Okay, so we'll say 11/8 is less than 7/4. Okay. All right, so the next one talked about them walking. And Joanne walked 5/6 of a mile, and Lupe walked 7/8 of a mile. So the first thing I notice is, okay, they're both they're both regular fractions, right? So that means they're both less than 1. Neither one of them walked a full mile. So when I make my number lines, I went 0 to 1 because they're both regular fractions. Notice I'm labeling it, right? Joanne, Lupe. And this one wasn't so easy to do on one number line, right? Because I can't really break up a 6, make it an 8, so I did 2 separate number lines. And so here, I broke it up into 6ths and labeled. And then here, I broke it up into 8ths and labeled. Now notice my number lines are the same size, right? Because if you make one tiny and one large, it isn't easy to see. And I like to make them big enough that you're not squishing in your numbers because you want to see what you're doing. And these two are really pretty close, but if you can see that the 7/8 is a smidge larger, okay? So here the question asked who walked the least, which would mean the lowest amount. So here, Joanne walks the least, right? Because she walks a smaller amount. Lupe worked a little tiny bit more, okay? And showing how you know or explain how you know, the number line would be a good way for that to be your evidence, okay? All right, next one. 7. Now, I didn't do any work on here because I want you to remember what we talked about when you're looking at your fractions, right? You're thinking, okay, 5/4. What do I know about 5/4? Ooh, well, 4/4 would be a whole, so that's more than a whole. Okay, all right, what's my other? 4/5. Interesting. 5/5 would be a whole, so this one's less than a whole. So, I already know which one's bigger, right? More than a whole is bigger. So, the question here did ask which one was shorter. So, 4/5 of a meter would be shorter. How do you know? You could say that I know this because 5/4 is an improper fraction, which would mean that it's more than 1. 4/4 would be a whole, so this is bigger than 1, right? This is bigger than 1 meter. Here, we don't even have a meter yet, right? It's just a portion. We're almost there, but we're not there yet. So this one is shorter because this is less than a whole. Okay? All right, and then this one with the handmade spaghetti, right? They measured 3 noodles. Interesting. So I guess the first noodle was 7/8, the second noodle was 7/4, and the last one was 4/2. So again, I want to look at my fractions. Okay, 7/8, 7/4, 4/2. I noticed this one, less than a whole. This is a regular fraction, okay? These two are improper fractions. So I'm not sure, but I know that this one is the smallest, for sure, because this is more than a whole and this is more than a whole. So this one is the shortest, okay? And so I drew that out. I did make 3 number lines the same size, okay? And then I drew that first one out. And see, 7/8 is less than a whole. And then, well, I wasn't really sure about these two. So I looked and I made the second one. So I labeled it 7/4. I broke it into fourths. And then I labeled it 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4, 5/4, 6/4, 7/4. And then that would be 8/4. And that's where 7/4. So 7/4 is definitely bigger, right? And then my last one was 4/2. So maybe some of you know, oh, 4 divided by 2 is 2, so you already knew it was a 2. But if you didn't, you would break up your number line into halves, label half, right? 2/2, which is a whole, 3/2, and 4/2. So this one would be here, okay? So then they wanted you to show it, right? So there was two ways that you could have done it. You could have said 4/2 is greater than 7/4, and 7/4 is greater than 7/8, right? Or you could have done it the other way. You could have done 7/8 is less than 7/4, and 7/4 is less than 4/2. Okay? All right. Very good. See you soon.